Hello, dwellers, and welcome to the basement. We had a brand new episode of Arrow this week. It was episode 12 of season number 5, titled Bravta. First obvious question before we get to all the spoilerific details and things that interest me or did not really interest me in this episode: was this a good episode or not? And for me, this was kind of average in a way. This was more one of those episodes where certain plots were advanced a little bit, as in very, very little, and we got some loose ends tied up in various degrees. So with that said, let's get to the details and the spoilers of this episode. So if you did not see the episode titled Bravta of Arrow, pause this video, go watch it, then come back and tell me what you thought about the episode, of course, and what you agree or disagree with me in my point of view regarding some of the details that just took place. The big thing in this episode was that it was revolving around General Walker, the guy who was trying to frame Diggle for stealing the nuke. Walker was taken into custody. He and his men got free and are in the win. They just go to sell this nuke to some Makovian rebels. And so Team Arrow goes to Russia, and this is where things kind of in its way goes a little bit off the rails. This is the first mission featuring the new Black Canary, Diana Drake. And so we don't really get much of her in terms of seeing her integrated with the team. Sure, we saw that with a good portion with last week, but one would think we would have gotten a focus on her a little bit more than what we got here. Now, instead, it's Diggle's quest for revenge, combined with him and Felicity both stepping over the line Oliver always crossed, and tying it all into the Prometheus deal of how Oliver affects the people around him in a negative way. And long story short, the moral ends up being that Oliver thinks that John, Diggle, and Felicity are better than he is, and he needs them to be that way. They kind of view him as being better than they are because he has to make all those tough choices. Blah blah blah, and it just kind of went a little paint by numbers for me in terms of getting to the actual point. And on top of everything else, we end up getting a little bit of a temporary goodbye. A ragman uses his rags to suppress the nuke when it goes off, and it appears it's affected the rags in a bad way, damaging them, separating the link Ragman has with them, and so says goodbye to Felicity at the very end of the episode, and kind of sucks because for then again, Ragman's always been like a D at best C level character in DC comic books themselves, and he's kind of more or less been canon fodder along with Mr. Terrific and Wild Dog in action sequences. So it kind of makes sense to temporarily take him out the picture, but it kind of sucks that he's not going to be around for an episode or two. Hopefully not for too long. That he'll be back as part of Team Arrow sooner rather than later. Now, this episode did have a number of positives in it. One, Wild Dog does not go to Russia with the team. No, he's left behind to help Quentin, who is out of rehab, is ready to resume his duties as the deputy mayor, and he voluntarily goes to Oliver's girlfriend, Miss Williams, to arrange an interview because he's going to be out there. And the decision to leave Wild Dog behind, it makes sense on two fronts. One, that if he goes to Russia, chances are he's going to cause an international incident by killing someone. And two, it allows for more of a character development, character moment for him. Wild Dog of Curtis, Rory, Ragman, and himself, Wild Dog. Wild Dog has gotten the most character development over the course of this season. We've seen how he plays off with Oliver. We've seen how he plays off of Curtis. We didn't really see him play off of Ragman too much, but we've seen how he works. This episode is great to see how he works off of Quentin. seeing him step up and more than willing to help Quentin prepare for the interview. And it turns out that he himself owes Quentin quite a lot, considering with an incident that occurred in his youth, where Quentin could have hauled his little butt off the juvie, but ends up sending him on the path that leads him to going into the military, eventually getting disarmed, but just trying to help form the man that he is. So seeing that all come around in a way kind of goes to show that Wild Dog isn't too upset about being left behind. He's for him, from how it came across to me, it was him returning the favor for what happened years prior. And I like that. Not to mention the scenes with these two going back and forth as they were spaced out throughout the episode was really well done, in my opinion. There was a great character moments there, and I wouldn't mind seeing Quentin and Wild Dog pair up and have more B stories together. Maybe they get caught up in a some sort of stuff out in the streets or something and have to deal with villains, thugs on their own without being able to call Oliver or the rest of Team Arrow in to help. So that could be pretty cool in its own right. And then you have this stuff with the Bravta, and thankfully we didn't have too many flashbacks. We had a couple, but they weren't a distraction. I did like how this episode tied into previous things involving Oliver's past with the Bratva, as well as uh, setting some future groundwork there, as the fact that Miss Williams, Oliver's girlfriend, sees the tattoo on his chest, which is a tattoo that all Bratva members get when they make captain. And then having her sources realize that, okay, Oliver was in Russia at one point in time before he came back to Starling City, and he's hanging out with Bratva, and there was someone that the Russians call the Archer, who is dressed very much like the Green Arrow. It isn't much to assume that she's going to be putting two and two and together, because two and two and two and two and two all add up. That is a My Little Pony reference, for those of you who are wondering why I just did that. But I digress. But she's obviously going to figure out that Oliver is the Green Arrow. What she's going to do with this information, that's going to be a big question in and of itself. Because for the most part, there's been like two types of people that when they learn that Oliver Queen is the Green Arrow, they end up being his ally, sometimes enemy in the case of Quentin Lance, at odds, or they end up being an enemy of his, and he ends up putting an arrow through them, or shipping their butts off to Iron Heights, or wherever the hell that the villains that just get straight up captured. Come to think of it, when you think about Arrow, there's like not too many villains or antagonists end up living or to be shipped off to jail. No, they end up either dead or marooned somewhere. But that's or off traveling in time and space, as in the case of Malcolm Merlin. Oh, boy, I can try to think if there was anything else about this episode that stood out to me. Oh, now things of the Felicity stuff tied in, primarily with John's, again, going too far in terms of doing what you have to, getting deep in the muck and all that stuff. But again, the moral was that they're all equal. None of them are better than each other. So there's that. And so on that note, we will just wrap this up here. Coming up in the basement, my friends, and of course you are my friends, there'll be a review. Where did I put that at? A comic book review, Justice League Power Rangers #1, that will be posted first thing on Thursday. And let's see, what else do we got planned? Oops, wrong file. See, and that's why I say I do this live the hard drive. Yes, tomorrow as well, the card for WWE Elimination Chamber appears to be finalized. So I will do a little breakdown analysis, give my thoughts and opinions on who I think should win, as I make my predictions tomorrow for this Sunday's WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. So those will be the two big things guaranteed for Thursday. Comic from the Basement and the Raw View predictions for Elimination Chamber. And on that note, my friends. And again, you are my friends. Be kind. Please subscribe. And we'll catch you next time.